If they really loved you, they wouldn't be confusing you. They'd be choosing you. My friends, let that one settle deep in your gut, because love, real love, isn't blurry. It's not hidden in mixed signals, breadcrumb texts, or sudden ghosting. And yet, so many of you are out here giving your whole heart to someone who treats your soul like a backup plan. Folks, if they really loved you, they wouldn't be doing this. Hey folks, imagine this. You're pouring water into a cracked glass. No matter how much you give, it keeps leaking. You fill it again, and again, and again, thinking maybe this time it'll hold. But it never does. That's what it feels like loving someone who says they care, but shows you otherwise. You keep pouring, and they keep leaking. You keep showing up, and they keep disappearing when it matters most. That's not love. That's self-sacrifice wrapped in false hope. And here's the kicker. They're not confused. They're not bad at expressing themselves. They know what they're doing. They know you're waiting. They know you're hoping. They know your heart is too loyal for your own good sometimes. And they use that. See, folks, we've got to stop calling this kind of behavior mixed signals. It's not mixed. It's a message, a very clear one. You're not their priority. Love doesn't play hide and seek. It doesn't show up only when it's convenient. If someone can go days ignoring you, if they can hurt you and then act like nothing happened, if they make you question your worth more than they protect it, they don't love you the way you deserve to be loved. That's the raw truth. And the more you deny it, the longer you'll bleed in silence. They'll say, "I love you," but love without action is just noise. They'll say, "I miss you," but missing someone isn't enough if they keep doing the things that broke you in the first place. You can't keep taking emotional punches and calling it passion. That's not depth. That's dysfunction. Here's something that might hit hard. Some people only give you attention when they feel you slipping away, not because they love you, but because they love control. That's not love. That's fear of losing access to you. And you are not a revolving door. You are not a placeholder. You are not an emotional vending machine. And yet, so many of us are stuck in this loop, telling ourselves, "But they say they care." My friends, words are cheap. Energy doesn't lie. Patterns don't lie. If you have to constantly explain your pain, beg for effort, or shrink yourself just to be tolerated, then you're not in love. You're in survival mode. Let me tell you something powerful. Your value doesn't decrease based on someone's inability to see it. Read that again. If they're too blind to recognize your light, that says more about their darkness than your worth. Don't let their emotional confusion become your identity. Don't internalize their neglect as a measure of how lovable you are. That's their broken lens, not your reality. So stay with me in this video, because we're going to unlearn the lies you've been told. We're going to see love for what it really is. Consistent, clear, calm. Not chaos, not confusion, not crumbs. And by the end of this, you're going to stop begging to be seen and start remembering who the hell you are. Comment below, "I won't chase confusion." Say it, show it, claim it, and hit that like button if this is already waking something up inside you. Subscribe to the channel, because this is your season to stop surviving and start rising. Let's get into it. Number 1, love without respect is a weapon in disguise. They say they love you, but every time they raise their voice, cross your boundaries, or mock your vulnerability, that love starts to look more like a weapon than a gift. My friends, let's stop dressing abuse in poetic language. Let's stop sugarcoating disrespect and calling it just how they are. If someone says they love you, but they use silence to punish you, if they disappear when you're hurting and return when you're healing, if they know how to wound you and call it just being honest, that's not love. That's ego wearing a mask. And eventually you have to ask yourself, is it really love, or is it just manipulation dressed in affection? Imagine being handed a bouquet of roses. On the surface, it's beautiful, but underneath, you start noticing the thorns. They cut your skin. At first, you think, maybe it's just this one rose. Maybe it won't happen again. But the more you hold on, the more it bleeds you. That's what love without respect feels like. It looks good in pictures. It sounds sweet in messages. But when no one's watching, it leaves bruises. Emotional ones, invisible ones. The kind only you can feel. When you're lying awake wondering, why does the person who says they love me make me feel this small? And still, you stay, you hope, because maybe they'll change. Maybe they'll see how much you're trying. Maybe they just need time. That's the lie, isn't it? The one we whisper to ourselves when the truth is too loud to bear. You're not foolish for loving. You're not weak for staying. You're just human, and humans are wired for hope. You believed their words would finally match their actions. You believed the version of them they showed in the beginning, not the one standing in front of you now, cold, careless, inconsistent. And that belief, that hope, becomes a prison cell with velvet walls, comfortable, familiar, but still a cage. You might even tell yourself, they've been through so much. That's why they act like this. And maybe they have. But folks, someone's trauma is never an excuse to traumatize you. You are not their therapist. You are not their emotional punching bag. And love, real love, isn't supposed to hurt like this. It's not supposed to confuse you, shrink you, or make you question your own worth every single day. The lie is, if I love them harder, they'll love me better. But let me tell you the truth, they don't need more love. They need more healing. And if they're not willing to face their own wounds, no amount of your love will ever reach them. They'll keep breaking things and calling it passion, keep withdrawing when you need them the most and calling it space, keep pushing your boundaries and calling it honesty. And you'll keep getting smaller just to keep the peace. You'll quiet your voice, numb your needs, pretend that you're okay with less than what you truly desire. But deep down, you're not okay. You haven't been okay for a while, and you're just waiting for something, anything, to wake them up. But here's the thing, you can't wake someone up who's pretending to sleep. They hear you. They know. They're just choosing not to change. So let me ask you, if you keep loving someone who doesn't respect you, what are you really teaching them? You're teaching them that your heart is negotiable, that your kindness has no boundaries, that they can mistreat you and you'll still stay. But my friends, love without respect is like a song with no melody. It might carry words, but it won't carry you. It'll feel empty, hollow, and you'll keep dancing to it because you've forgotten what real music sounds like. That's the tragedy. We get so used to dysfunction, we start calling it normal. But normal doesn't mean healthy, and consistency in pain is still pain. You deserve a love that doesn't come with disclaimers, a love that doesn't flinch at your vulnerability, a love that doesn't leave when you're too tired to pretend. That kind of love isn't found in people who enjoy the power of keeping you insecure. It's found in people who protect your peace more than they protect their pride. Yes, walking away is hard. It'll feel like you're tearing your heart out of your own chest. You'll cry, you'll second guess. You'll replay every what if and maybe someday in your mind like it's on repeat. But here's what's harder. Staying in a place that keeps draining the light out of you. Staying in a love that only loves you when it's convenient. Staying in a connection where you're always the one making excuses for someone who stopped showing up a long time ago. The world has tricked you into thinking that walking away means failure, but Stoicism teaches something different. It teaches that peace, self-respect, and alignment matter more than emotional fantasy. It teaches that detachment isn't cold, it's wise, and that loving someone doesn't always mean keeping them. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let go, not just for them, but for you. You're not here to be loved halfway. You're not here to be someone's emotional backup. You're here to be seen, valued, and respected. And if someone can't offer you those things, no matter what they say, they don't love you in the way you need to be loved. So here's your moment, right now, to reclaim your power, to stop shrinking, to stop hoping they'll become someone they're not ready to be. Let this be the turning point, not the turning circle. Write it in the comments right now. I deserve love with respect. Say it, show it, etch it into your mind, your energy, your future, because when you speak that truth out loud, you stop waiting for someone else to finally get it. You start giving it to yourself. And stay with me, because in the next part, we're going even deeper into why their silence isn't mystery. It's a message, and it's time you finally learn how to read it. Number 2, if they loved you, you wouldn't have to chase clarity. If someone really loves you, you won't have to chase clarity. Clarity will chase you. Let's stop pretending that confusion is romantic. It's not. It's exhausting, and it's a game that too many people get trapped in, waiting days for a reply, reading into half sentences, decoding texts like they're ancient scrolls, and calling it love. My friends, love doesn't hide behind seen receipts and vague replies. Love is clear, it's steady, it shows up. And if they're not showing up, it's not because they're complicated, it's because they're choosing not to. That's not complexity, that's avoidance. Imagine you're standing in a foggy forest calling someone's name. You hear footsteps, but then silence. A branch snaps, then nothing again. You take a few steps forward, calling louder, heart pounding, hoping they're just around the corner. But they never answer clearly. That's what it feels like chasing clarity from someone who says they love you, but keeps you in the fog. You think you're getting closer, but all you're really doing is losing yourself deeper in their silence. And I get it. It's scary to walk away from uncertainty. Because the mind plays tricks. It whispers things like, maybe they're just bad at communicating, or maybe I'm overthinking it, or maybe this is just how relationships are. But the truth is, if you're constantly overthinking where you stand with someone, that is your answer. Love doesn't leave room for confusion. It makes you feel safe, even in uncertainty. See, folks, we've romanticized struggle. We've been taught that if it's complicated, it must be deep. That the more confused we are, the more passionate it must be. But that's not love. That's chaos. That's trauma bonding. That's you clinging to someone because you think unpredictability equals intensity. But let me ask you this. Why is it that peace makes you uncomfortable, but inconsistency feels familiar? It's because most of us have been trained to confuse inconsistency with chemistry. We mistake their absence for mystery, their coldness for coolness, their flakiness for freedom. But let's cut the fluff. If they can go hours, days, weeks without checking in, if you're always the one initiating, always the one over-explaining, always the one trying to keep things together, that's not mutual love. That's emotional labor. And love shouldn't feel like a full-time job where you're the only one clocking in. You might be thinking, but they're just not good at communication. No. People are not bad at communication. They're selective with who they want to communicate with, and the ones they care about, they make time for. They create clarity. They volunteer reassurance. You won't need to chase it, beg for it, or break down to finally get a response. We live in a time where people want the benefits of closeness without the responsibility of clarity. They want your body, your energy, your emotional availability, but they don't want to define what this is. And if you dare to ask, what are we, they vanish like smoke, leaving you feeling like you did something wrong for simply wanting to understand. But that's not too much. That's the bare minimum. And anyone who makes you feel crazy for asking honest questions is hiding something. Now, let's talk about why you stay. Why you keep chasing answers from someone who only gives you riddles. It's because the little they give feels better than nothing. A two-word text after 3 days feels like gold when you're starving. But my friends, breadcrumbs are not a meal, and the longer you settle for scraps, the more you start believing that scraps are all you're worth. But let me remind you, you were not born to chase. You were not made to beg. You are not a puzzle to be figured out, and you shouldn't have to become smaller just to fit into their uncertainty. You are allowed to want clarity. You are allowed to want someone who speaks your name with certainty, not someone who stumbles every time you ask what this connection really means. It's not your job to teach them how to treat you. It's your job to show them how you treat yourself. And if that doesn't match what they're giving, then it's time to step back. Because clarity isn't something you demand. It's something that arrives naturally when the energy is real, when the intentions are pure, and when love is not something to be weaponized for power. Let them go if they can't be honest. Let them go if they need space every time things get real. Let them go if their silence speaks louder than their affection. Because the longer you hold on to them, the longer you block the one who's actually capable of loving you out loud, clearly, completely. You don't need someone who keeps you wondering. You need someone who keeps you grounded. And if they really loved you, you wouldn't have to wonder at all. Comment this right now. Love should feel clear. Let that be your new standard. Write it in the comments. Speak it into your life. Let the world around you know you're done chasing. You're done waiting for half effort. You're ready for something certain. And stay with me, because what's coming next is going to expose the hidden meaning behind their inconsistency and why the pattern was never your fault. Number 3, inconsistency is a silent confession. If their presence feels like a reward and their absence feels like punishment, that's not love. That's control wearing perfume. Let's talk about inconsistency, my friends. That on-again, off-again roller coaster where one day they're sweet, responsive, and telling you how much you mean to them, and the next day they vanish like they've never met you. You sit there wondering, what changed? Was it something you said? Did you come on too strong? Are you imagining things? But here's the truth nobody wants to admit. Inconsistency is not a personality trait. It's a confession. It's them silently saying, I want the benefits of you without the responsibility of you. Imagine it like this. You're building a house, brick by brick, layer by layer. You're trying to build something real. And just when the walls start to rise, just when you're getting close to something solid, they pull a few bricks out, and then they disappear. You're left staring at half-built promises and empty blueprints, and every time they return, you hope this is the time they stay long enough to finish what they started. But they don't, because they never intended to build with you. They just liked knowing they could stop by when it suited them. That's the cruel reality of inconsistency. It gives just enough to keep your hope alive, but not enough to give you peace. And over time, you start to mistake those fleeting highs for love. You convince yourself that maybe the problem is you, that if you were more chill, more patient, less needy, they'd finally get it together. But let's call it what it is. They are emotionally unreliable. They don't lack the ability to show up. They just don't choose to show up for you consistently. You know what they're consistent with? Confusion, ghosting, hot and cold attention, making plans, breaking them, pulling you close only to push you away. And we call it mixed signals like it's cute. But it's not mixed. It's manipulation. It's power dynamics. It's someone who enjoys being wanted more than they enjoy giving love. Someone who knows exactly how far to go before you call it quits, so they never let you get there. And yet you stay because inconsistency creates addiction. That's what people don't realize. It's psychological. The same part of your brain that responds to gambling responds to unpredictable affection. You don't know when you'll get your next dose of love, so you keep checking your phone like a slot machine, hoping today's the day they finally act right. That's not romance. That's torment, and it rewires your brain to believe that peace is boring and chaos is passion. But ask yourself this: why do you keep letting someone be inconsistent with you when you've been nothing but consistent with them? Why do you give your best to someone who only gives you their leftovers? And why are you still sitting at a table that only serves you crumbs while they feast on your loyalty? My friends, I get it. I really do. You remember how they made you laugh. You remember those late-night conversations, the little moments that felt like magic, and part of you clings to those memories, hoping they'll come back. But here's the thing: moments don't make a relationship. Patterns do. And if the pattern is inconsistency, confusion, and chaos, then it doesn't matter how good it was sometimes. Because real love isn't measured by how amazing they are once a month. It's measured by how safe you feel every day, by how supported you are when you're not at your best, by how easy it feels to be yourself without fearing that your honesty will scare them away. That's love, not these disappearing acts wrapped in sweet apologies. And don't fall for the story that they're just busy or they have a lot going on. Everyone has a life. But people make time for what matters. People show up for who they value. And if someone is consistent in everything else, work, friends, hobbies, but inconsistent with you, that's not a scheduling conflict. That's a choice. I want you to remember this: you are not a backup plan. You are not a convenience. You are not someone they get to keep on the shelf and pull down when they feel lonely. You are a whole human being with a heart that deserves certainty. You deserve someone whose love doesn't feel like a gamble. And I know walking away from someone inconsistent is hard, because you've seen glimpses of their potential. You've tasted the version of them they could be, but you're not in love with who they are. You're in love with who you imagine they could become. And that gap between potential and reality, that's where your peace is dying. So take your power back. Consistency is not too much to ask for. In fact, it's the minimum requirement for something real. Don't settle for someone who only loves you when it's easy. Don't chase someone whose love you have to earn, and don't mistake mixed signals for mystery. It's just their way of keeping control. Write it in the comments. I won't chase inconsistency. Say it loud. Type it proud. Let it echo through the version of you that used to accept less. Let it be the anthem for the you who is done playing small. And stay with me, because in the next section, we're going to break the cycle of emotional manipulation and finally learn how to separate love from control. Number 4, true love does not manipulate your worth. If you have to earn their love by proving your pain, it's not love. It's emotional warfare with a romantic smile. Let's be brutally honest, my friends. If someone truly loves you, they won't play games with your self-worth. They won't keep you guessing if you matter. They won't use your vulnerability as leverage to make themselves feel powerful. That's not love. That's manipulation. That's power disguised as affection. And too many of us are stuck in relationships where our value is constantly being measured, not honored. You ever been in a situation where every time you express your feelings, it somehow turns into your fault? You try to talk about how they've hurt you, and suddenly you're the dramatic one. You ask for more attention, and they say you're too needy. You show them where it hurts, and they respond by twisting the blade. That's not emotional maturity. That's someone using your heart as a mirror to reflect their own damage and blaming you for the cracks. It's like trying to walk through a house of mirrors. Nothing feels solid. One moment, you think you're being seen, heard, loved. And the next, you're standing in front of a distorted reflection of yourself, wondering why everything feels so confusing. You start thinking maybe you are too sensitive. Maybe your standards are too high. Maybe you should just accept how things are. But you know what that is? That's manipulation doing its job, making you shrink, making you doubt what you know deep down. You are not the problem. Real love doesn't shrink you. It doesn't train you to lower your expectations to keep the peace. Real love says, I see you, all of you, and I choose you, even when it's not easy. But manipulation, it makes love conditional. It says, I'll give you attention when you act right. I'll talk to you when I'm in the mood. I'll give you love as long as you play by my rules. That's not a relationship. That's a contract with hidden terms. And let's talk about emotional withdrawal. You know what I mean. When you finally speak up, they go silent. When you ask for more, they pull away. When you call out their behavior, they suddenly become cold, distant, or too busy. Folks, that's emotional punishment. That's not someone being overwhelmed. That's someone teaching you that your truth has consequences. So next time, you stay quiet, and they win. But here's the truth. You are not hard to love. You are not too much. You are not difficult because you feel things deeply or want consistency. Those are not flaws. They are signs that you're awake, aware, and worthy of something real. The problem isn't your standards. The problem is the person who's intimidated by them. Because people who are committed to avoiding themselves will always be threatened by someone who refuses to avoid the truth. It's not your job to make someone see your value. Your existence is not a campaign. You don't need to pitch your worth like you're selling a product. If someone can't see your light, it's because they're too busy standing in their own shadow. And no matter how brightly you shine, they'll keep dimming you just to feel in control. Now let's address the fear. Why do we stay when we know something feels off? Because manipulation is sneaky. It doesn't come in screaming. It whispers. It starts small. A joke at your expense, a backhanded compliment, "You're lucky I deal with you." And over time, those little cuts become internal scars, until one day you can't tell if you're staying out of love or out of the belief that no one else would love you better. But let me remind you, love is not supposed to hurt like that. Love does not destroy your confidence. It doesn't leave you crying and apologizing for having needs. If you constantly feel like you're one wrong move away from being abandoned, you're not in love. You're in survival mode. You deserve a love where your silence isn't safer than your truth, where your tears are met with comfort, not criticism, where you don't have to explain why respect is not optional. You deserve a love that makes you feel more like yourself, not less. So, what do you do when you realize you're being manipulated? You step back, you detach, you stop playing their game and start rewriting your rules. You stop letting someone else assign your value and start remembering who you were before they made you forget. And yeah, it's going to be hard, especially if you've built your world around this person, especially if you've convinced yourself that maybe they'll change. But my friends, how many times do you have to betray yourself before you realize they're not coming around? This is your moment to choose differently, to stop negotiating your worth with people who profit from your confusion, to walk away from relationships that feel more like emotional auditions than partnerships. So let me hear you. Right now, type it in the comments. My worth is not negotiable. Say it to yourself. Say it to the version of you that stayed too long. Say it to the world around you. Because when you start believing it, everything changes. And stay with me, because next, we're about to break down how their confusion isn't about not knowing how they feel. It's about keeping you from knowing how you should feel. And that clarity, it's coming. Number 5, they wouldn't keep you confused if they truly saw you. Confusion isn't a sign of deep love. It's a symptom of emotional distance. Let's stop glamorizing confusion, folks. It's not a plot twist. It's not a love language, and it's definitely not romantic. When someone truly sees you, there is no fog, no guessing games, no silent treatment that leaves you pacing your room, rereading your own words, wondering if you said too much, cared too loudly, or simply asked for clarity they weren't willing to give. Because that's what confusion really is, isn't it? a wall of silence painted in pretty colors, a refusal to communicate dressed up as "I just need space," a lack of intention covered up by "I don't want to rush things." But deep down, you know this: if someone truly saw your heart, they wouldn't leave it out in the cold without explanation. Imagine going to a restaurant, ordering your favorite meal. You're excited. You sit down, napkin on lap, fork in hand. But instead of bringing your food, the waiter brings you the menu again. You ask, "Is the food coming?" And they smile and say, "Maybe." So you wait, and eventually you stop being hungry, but you're still sitting there because you told yourself, "Well, I already ordered." That's what it's like when someone gives you just enough attention to keep you waiting, but never enough clarity to move forward. This isn't about being needy. This isn't about demanding too much. This is about emotional honesty. And if someone can't look you in the eye and say, "Here's where I stand," then they're not lost. They're just comfortable keeping you lost. Because the longer you're confused, the longer they get to avoid taking responsibility. Confusion benefits them. It keeps you tied to hope. It keeps you showing up. And it keeps them from having to choose between stepping up or stepping out. But let's be real here. This doesn't feel like love. It feels like emotional purgatory. Like you're always waiting for a signal that never fully comes, a reply that never really answers the question, a conversation that circles, deflects, and ends with you feeling guilty for even asking. That's not vulnerability. That's evasion. That's someone protecting their comfort at the cost of your clarity. And yet, you keep giving them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they're not ready to open up. Maybe they've been hurt before. Maybe they just need time. But the truth is, time doesn't fix lack of effort. Time doesn't teach someone how to care. Effort does. And if they can't offer you the bare minimum of emotional direction, it's not about timing, it's about priority. See, people who are truly into you won't want to keep you confused. They'll want you to feel safe, certain, clear. Not because they've got it all figured out, but because they're willing to figure it out with you. They'll communicate, they'll listen, they'll correct misunderstandings, not create more. And even if they don't know exactly what they want, they'll tell you that, with honesty, with respect, without letting silence do the dirty work. Let me tell you something hard but freeing. You were not made to sit in emotional waiting rooms. You were not born to be someone's backup while they figure things out. You are not a placeholder. You are not a maybe. You are not an almost. You are clarity in human form, and anyone who truly sees you will reflect that back. But it takes courage to accept this truth, because it means letting go of the fantasy, the potential, the version of them you keep holding on to in your mind. You've seen their spark, their charm, their sweet side. And that version of them feels so close, you can almost touch it. But here's the deal. If you have to constantly fight for that version, if it only shows up when you pull it out of them, it's not real. And it's not enough. Love shouldn't be a riddle. You shouldn't need to become a detective in your own relationship. If you're reading into their silence more than you're reading their words, if you're explaining your needs more than they're trying to understand them, you're not being seen, you're being tolerated. And what's the cost of staying in this fog? Your peace, your self-worth, your ability to trust yourself. Because every time they leave you confused, you end up turning the confusion inward. You start questioning you. Am I asking for too much? Maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I need to be more patient. No, my friend. What you need is someone who communicates, someone who shows up, someone who sees you without you having to beg for their vision. Because when someone sees you, really sees you, they make it known. They don't run from conversations. They don't dodge the real stuff. They invite it. They meet you in the middle. They make the hard talks feel safe. And they make sure that you never, ever have to wonder how they feel. So comment this right now. Confusion is not love. Let it sink in. Let it ring loud. Let it replace every excuse you've made for someone who refuses to give you clarity. Write it to remind yourself that you are worthy of truth, of certainty, of peace. Stay with me, because next we're stepping into your power, the power of detachment. The moment you stop chasing confusion and start honoring your own clarity, you stop bleeding for people who won't even hand you a bandage. And that's where your freedom begins. Number 6. Detachment is the most loving response to disrespect. The moment you stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you, you reclaim your power. Let's make something very clear, my friends. Detachment is not bitterness. It's not coldness. It's not revenge. Detachment is peace. Detachment is choosing your sanity over their chaos. Detachment is the quiet, unshakable decision to stop entertaining what keeps wounding you. And if they've disrespected you repeatedly, if their actions scream everything their words try to hide, then detachment is the most loving thing you can offer. Not just to them, but to yourself. Because let's face it, some people only respect you when they feel the absence of your energy. They get comfortable when you're always available, always forgiving, always explaining, always trying. But the moment you go quiet, the moment you pull back, the moment you stop showing up for the same behavior, you become louder than any argument you could have ever had. Imagine being in a room with someone who keeps shouting over you. Every time you speak your truth, they twist it. Every time you express pain, they invalidate it. Now picture yourself calmly getting up and walking out. No drama, no last words, just the sound of your footsteps echoing behind you. That's detachment. And that silence, that's what forces people to confront themselves. Not your lectures, not your tears, your absence. Detachment doesn't mean you stop loving them. It means you stop breaking yourself just to prove it. It means you finally understand that love without respect is just suffering in disguise. And you were never meant to be a martyr for someone else's comfort. You're not here to bleed for people who treat your peace like it's disposable. You're not here to keep proving your worth to someone who already made up their mind about you. And I know, walking away feels like the final blow, especially when you've invested your time, your heart, your forgiveness, your everything. You thought if you just held on a little longer, gave them one more chance, they'd finally see what you bring to the table. But they saw it. They just didn't value it, and you staying after the disrespect only teaches them one thing: you'll tolerate it. So you want to love them? Fine. Then respect yourself enough to walk away when love is no longer mutual. Because real love doesn't make you beg for consistency. It doesn't hide behind silence when things get hard. It doesn't play with your emotions like a game they think they've already won. And if you let them keep doing that, they never learn. Not because they don't know they're hurting you, but because they know they can get away with it. You teach people how to treat you by what you allow, by what you tolerate, and by what you walk away from. Detachment is you drawing the line and saying, no more. It's you refusing to accept the bare minimum just because it's wrapped in the memory of better days. It's you standing in the mirror and finally realizing you are enough with or without them. Some of you have been holding on because you're afraid they'll change for someone else. But listen, if they couldn't change for the version of you who gave your all, then they're not ready to change at all. And even if they do change later, that doesn't mean you were supposed to wait around and suffer in the meantime. Growth doesn't always happen in front of you. Sometimes it happens because you walked away. And yes, they may miss you. One day, they'll scroll through old pictures and remember how safe your love felt. But don't confuse their regret with your responsibility. You don't owe your future to someone who couldn't honor your presence. Let them miss you. Let them feel your silence. Let them wonder how someone they took for granted became someone they can no longer reach. Because here's the truth. When you detach from the wrong one, you create space for the right one. The one who doesn't play games. the one who doesn't confuse you, the one who meets your energy with equal commitment and clarity. But that only comes when you stop trying to fix what keeps breaking you. So I'll leave you with this. Detachment is not giving up, it's growing up. It's the final act of self-love. It's the moment you stop asking, why do they keep hurting me? And start asking, why do I keep allowing it? And when you answer that, honestly, everything changes. Now, write this in the comments and speak it into your next season. I detach to protect my peace. Say it for the version of you that's still healing. Say it for the you that needed boundaries years ago. Say it for the you that's finally waking up. If this message spoke to your soul, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to remember who they are. And remember this, silence is power, detachment is clarity, and peace. Peace is your birthright. This isn't the end of your story, it's the beginning of your freedom. Stay grounded, stay rising, stay detached.